How you doing? Appreciate you for stumbling on in, checking out Chomping at the Bit. Greatly appreciate it. If you are new here, I really appreciate you giving me an opportunity. If you're returning, what's up? Hopefully you're having a good day. Okay, so I was kind of sitting around wondering what I would talk about today. Could go Red Sox, look at some Patriots stuff. I don't know. But Brad Stevens made it easy for me. When late last night I was watching Red Sox Angels, which did not turn out well, but neither here nor there. News came across that Jrue Holiday traded. I was like, okay, it's a little interesting. I thought, maybe Brad would wait a little bit after the draft, kind of assess some stuff, and then start dealing. No, he didn't wait. Literally the day after the finals, the Thunder hadn't even had their parade yet, and Brad made his first move. So Jrue Holiday, you know, big part of what the Celtics did in 2024 in winning, lowering banner 18, all that. With his key defensive stats, you look at Indiana laying the game, steals from Nemhard, helps seal that one. To his like 3-point shooting, especially his corner 3-point shooting, where he was one of the best in the league. You look at, I guess, community work. He and his wife, Lauren Holiday, formerly of the U.S. women's soccer team. He was a leader on the team, just a pro's pro, a winner. One in Milwaukee, one in Boston. So I guess if you're a Portland fan, I don't know. But because of the economics of this era of the NBA, it was tough to see Holiday back in Boston next season. Because if you look at it, he's, mid 30s with 2 more years plus a player option left on his deal. And at his age, he'd be like 37, maybe 38, depending on his birthday. He's going to opt in to that player option. It'd be for about 30, I want to say it's like 37.5 million. What makes that number even worse is because the Celtics are a second apron team, that factored much more when you look at luxury tax and everything that the Celtics were paying. So think of it this way. If the Celtics had brought everybody back, this team with luxury tax and everything on top of it would cost $500 million next season. Actually, probably more than that, but that's crazy. Then you have to factor in that the team was just sold, so you have a new owner looking at the bottom line. So yeah, the task for Brad Stevens is going to be shedding salary while keeping the team somewhat competitive. The East next season wide open. How do you feel about Cleveland next year? Now, if Cleveland brings back the same group, are they going to be any better? Probably not. The Knicks, they don't even have a coach yet. And at least to me, I think there's questions about Cat, Brunson. That's your duo. Are you really winning a title with those two? So questions in New York. The Pacers, you saw my last video. They're going to be without Halliburton next season because of the Achilles injury, which once again, hoping for a speedy recovery for you, Tyrese Halliburton. But the Pacers will look different next year. Now, Orlando made the first move with Desmond Bane, but there's still questions in Orlando. Banchero has a bit of an inefficiency to his offensive game. Bane is not a point guard, which has been Orlando's biggest need. So still questions. The Pistons are up and coming, but when do they take that leap? The Bucks, Giannis, what else? Right? So if Brad Stevens can work this offseason correctly, the Celtics minus Jason Tatum could still factor in to who represents the East next season. That might sound crazy, but Brad Stevens is that kind of guy. And if this move is any indication of what else he has cooking up, I think could be interesting. So, but a little background aside, Jrue Holiday is being sent back to Portland, which is where the Celtics got him from 2 years ago after he was jettisoned out of Milwaukee. He was up in Portland for a week or so, and then the Celtics got him for Brogdon and Robert Williams, I believe. Brogdon, I think, has since been moved. And Robert Williams, the same issues he had in Boston, injuries are what's hurting him up in Portland. So they get Anfernee Simons back. Anfernee Simons is, 26? He's a 6'3", 2 guard. And, playing the shooting guard position, the dude can shoot. He shot 36% from 3 last season, which was actually down from the season before when I think he shot like 38, 39%. He shot 50% on his 2-point shots. He's a guy that can create for himself. Now, I think that part is interesting because when you look at Tatumless team next year, Tatum's maybe best attribute, his playmaking ability at the 4 position, his ability to break down on the dribble, find guys that are open, and make it easier for them. So Simons is a guy who can create for himself. Now, last season, he did average about 5 assists to go along with his 19.3 points. So he does have a little playmaking himself, but it looks like under Mazzulla's system and kind of what Brad Stevens started in Boston, expect Simons to be a guy that gets kind of a green light from 3. And as he's shown so far in his career, he's pretty good at it. I think he took about 15 shots a game, which he can take that and maybe even a little bit more in Boston because Tatum took about 18, 20 shots a game. He's obviously out. Holiday took maybe like 10 shots a game. He's out. There's shots there for guys to take. So the fact that you moved Holiday, you didn't have to attach a pick. You didn't send cash or anything like that with him. And you got Simons plus 2 second-round picks, which we know Brad Stevens gets creative with those second-round picks. As much as I hate seeing Jrue Holiday leave, I think this is a good deal for the Celtics. They get younger, first off. Simons is about 9 years younger than Jrue Holiday. They get more athletic. As I just said, Simons can run in transition. He can finish at the rim. He, if you're in the half court, he can create. He can, create space for himself on the perimeter. He can break down, get to the rim, finish at the front of the rim. So that sense of it, the offensive side, you see the potential upgrade. Now, obviously, Holiday's biggest contribution was defensively. Now, Simons is not the best defender. He might not even be an average defender. But the task for Mazzulla is going to be, was he a below average defender kind of in a losing situation, maybe that affected him? Or is he just a bad defender? But another thing, we've seen quote unquote bad defenders get to Boston and then turn into a decent team defender. And that's all Anfernee Simons would have to do in Boston. Like you're not going to put him on the best offensive player and be like, oh, all right, you got this tonight. No, he's not going to do that. He's going to have to fit into the Celtics team defense concept. Pay attention. Don't lose your man. Get into passing lanes, close out, stuff like that. I feel like Anfernee Simons can do that. And you got to figure he's getting out of Portland to a winning situation. Maybe he shows a little bit more effort on that side of the ball. I don't know. Just saying. So that's the other thing. You get more athletic. The third thing, because of today's NBA, because of today's economics, Jrue Holiday was making too much money to justify being on the Celtics going forward. Unfortunately, Celtics are a second apron team. They have to shed salary. Jrue Holiday was set to make about 32, 33 million next season. Now, Anfernee Simons does not come with some small price tag either. He makes about 27. So I think with everything, it's about $5 million in savings for the Celtics, salary-wise. But that $5 million, once again, second apron team, actually equates to more when you factor in the luxury tax bill that comes with this Celtics team, which everything considered, the team from last season back next year, it's like $500 million, way too much. So this does save a little bit on that end as well, obviously. But I think another thing we can gain from this is Brad is not done. Not at all. Now, I did learn that technically they don't have to get under the second apron until the trade deadline. I feel like Brad's going to try to do it well before then. Because even if you look at Simons, the player, Simons, the contract, also factors into this. Holiday had 3 years left on his deal. There's 2 years in a player option. He's going to be like 37 years old at that point. He's going to opt in on the player option. You can guarantee that. Simons only has next year on his deal. He's an expiring contract. He is extension eligible, but that gives the Celtics a window to decide what to do with him. Like if he fits into the system, fine. Negotiate during the season, see if you can't bring him back on a multi-year deal. Worst case, he, flashes a little, but ultimately they're like, I don't think this is going to work long term. Maybe you flip him at the trade deadline. Third option, you let him play it out. He goes to free agency. His money comes off the books anyway, which lines up with when Tatum would be ready to return. I guess at that point, you probably would be under the second apron. You might even be under the first apron at that point, and then you're just going into it with Tatum, Brown, White, the pieces around it. You fill in with kind of with the money you would have at that point. Salary cap's going to go up, so the space would be a little bit more. Yeah, so like I said, it's a deal the Celtics had to make. I know it's tough because Jrue Holiday was well liked. He and his wife, Lauren Holiday, formerly of the U.S. women's soccer team, were kind of, were active in the community. I get it. Same kind of feelings when Marcus Smart left. Marcus Smart, fan favorite, hardworking, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, like I said. Now, Simons, here's another thing with Simons. Brad could literally flip him for something else. At this point, I don't know. Brad is playing chess right now. I think Simon stays. I feel like he's a guy that Brad and Mazzulla would probably really like. But looking at the team as currently constructed, because if you look at it on paper, Derek White, Anfernee Simons, and Jaylen Brown technically can play the two. I don't think this part's that big of an issue. I think Derek White's going to be your point guard. Some people thought you move Holiday. This is before we knew what they were going to get for him. Maybe Pritchard becomes starting point guard. I think with this move, Pritchard stays in his six-man role. The guy just won Sixth Man of the Year. That's not a bad thing for him to continue in that role. But I fully see White and Simons starting in your backcourt. I think Jaylen Brown plays the three. He obviously has the size to play the three. So Pritchard will be your Derek White backup. JD Davison, this now makes him the depth point guard. Maine Celtics own JD Davison, G League MVP JD Davison now becomes your depth point guard. Some nights you'll see him if White or Pritchard get into foul trouble. If it's a blowout type situation, you'll see a little bit more of JD Davison next year. That's not a bad idea. Behind Simons, I guess you have Bailey Shireman, who, I've mentioned in previous videos. Bailey Shireman might be the reason why Baylor Shireman, I keep wanting to say Baylor Shireman is why Sam Hauser might be on his way out. The Celtics are still $18 million in the second apron. Hauser makes about 10. So that brings you closer to getting out of the second apron. I think that's the bare minimum. Get out of the second apron. Perfect scenario. You're no longer a second apron. You're not a first apron. Maybe you're a tax team, which is fine. So Shireman might, allow Brad Stevens to move on from Hauser. Then at the 3, you have Jaylen Brown. You have Sam Hauser right now. But Jordan Walsh is a guy to look for next season. I think Jordan Walsh can play a bigger role, especially without Tatum. Jordan Walsh, very long arms, moves his feet on defense, gets after it. I think what we saw offensively, he has a lot more confidence in his shot than he did when he first got to Boston. So I would not hate if he carved out a role next season. I wouldn't hate that at all. Where the biggest evidence that Brad Stevens isn't done, the front court. Because you have to remember, Horford and Cornette are free agents. They're kind of just out there only because Celtics can't really do much with them right now as they're trying to shed some salary. But right now, you're looking at, Tatum missing the whole year. You have Xavier Tillman. Yeah. How do you feel about that? You have Porzingis and Neemias Queta basically as your front court. That's where you assume the next move brings bodies to the front court. And from everything being reported, Brad is still working the phones with Kristaps Porzingis in mind as the next to go. And I think reportedly the Warriors and the Lakers are interested. Lakers we knew. I mean, not shocked by the Lakers being interested because the Lakers need a big. If Brad swings a deal with the Lakers, the question would be what comes back in return. Would it be a Rui Hachimura? Austin Reeves? I don't know. I don't think they go crazy like that. Maybe it's like a Rui and a pick or something. Who knows? But that's probably going to be the next shoe to drop. And supposedly Brad wants to get it done before the draft. The draft is Wednesday night at 8, first round, and then Thursday night's the second round. So there's a good chance Brad might make some more news either Tuesday night or some point Wednesday during the day. Which, if he does, I will be back here to talk about a Porzingis deal. But let me go ahead and get out of here on this one. Good luck to Jrue Holiday up in Portland. I feel like he sticks up there this time because I think Chauncey Billups wants his leadership, his ability to run the team. Because I think there's some pressure on Billups to win something next year. And by that, I mean be a play-in team at least. I think Holiday can help that group get there. So I think he actually does stick in Portland this time. But, welcome to Boston, Anfernee Simons. We'll see how long your stay is, but I understand the move. I like the move. You let me know, though, how you feel about it down in the comment section. Love to talk about it with you. Check out the socials on the page. Follow me on the ones you're not on, or the ones that you're not following me on. Join the conversation on any of them. I'm happily willing to talk to you. I do have a Discord. Feel free to join that. Let's talk some more about it over there. It's all up to you. But appreciate you for tuning in. Give it a like. It helps out a lot. If you're new, follow or subscribe, depending on the platform. Leave a review if you're an audio listener. Appreciate all of you as well. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You enjoy the rest of your day. Be safe. Please do. Stay cool. It is hot out there. God bless. I'll see you next time. All right? Bye.